Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Loudguns and today we're going to be continuing with our series looking at all the ships available to buy in-game for aUEC. In this final episode we're going through everything over 3.5 million, so we'll be getting into the big multi-cruise ships. And one of the reasons I started doing this was to help people put aUEC into their pockets and ships in their hangars. And there are a lot of good channels out there covering how to spend your hard currency, but I will remind people that you don't have to fly these ships. Thanks to Anorii for the awesome backing music, and to everyone in Frontier who helped make this video. There's a link to our Discord down below if you'd like to come and say hi. And finally, if you're considering getting into SC, make sure you use somebody's referral code when you create your account. It'll give you a bit of extra starting cash. So mine's up on screen, but just be sure to use somebody's to give yourself an advantage. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't caught one of the previous two episodes, that there are 3 places to buy ships in-game. So there's Astro Armada at Area 18, which in our title cards we'll call AA. Then we have New Deal, which is actually within Tisa Spaceport at Lorville on Hurston. So in the titles we'll call this one ND. And then on Crusader at Horizon we have the Crusader Industries showroom. This doesn't appear to have terminals, but you can buy a couple of ships just off the show floor there. This one will come up as CIS. So kicking off, we've got the second of the Connie series, the Andromeda. This ship is classed as a gunship by the Matrix, but really it's a jack-of-all-trades Connie. A bit like an upgraded Cutlass Black. So to me the Connie series is that first step into larger ships, and it's perfect for getting together with a group of mates. With 96 SCU, its freight potential isn't to be sniffed at, and the cargo bay can also house a number of ground vehicles, although it's most firmly designed to take an RSI Ursa rover. In terms of firepower, the Andromeda's no slouch, with 4 gimbaled size 4 guns under pilot control, 2 of which can be swapped for size 5s, and 2 turrets with dual size 2s. We've also got this snub fighter, the Merlin, that detaches from the back. The Aquila, some debate over exactly how to say that, so I'm just picking an option, is the exploration version of the Connie series. Replaces one of the gun turrets with a specially designed scanning turret that unfortunately is yet to be implemented. But you still have the snubcraft, but as well as defending the mothership during a fight, I think this could have some really interesting uses for a crew of explorers, potentially as effectively a one-man extra spacesuit to take you towards like a wreck that needs looking through, etc. One of my orc mates refers to the Connie Phoenix as Air Force One, and that image has stuck with me over time. It's a luxury variant that in my opinion is really well thought out. It might be controversial, but the Phoenix is actually one of my personal favourite luxury ships in-game. And while luxury hasn't really had any impact on gameplay to this point, I did notice that there's an item on the roadmap for 3.16 where we'll have NPC taxi missions, so a mission to go and take an NPC from point A to point B. And one of the payout criteria there was the level of luxury of the ship that you were offering the NPC to travel in. And I think therefore that could be the start of this whole personnel transportation game loop. And maybe give more of a reason to some of these luxury vessels. Coming in at just over 4 million credits, we've got the Retallator bomber from Aegis. The Retallator is planned to be a modular ship, with the bomber version being one of a number of options that you have, but currently it's the only one ready. It packs 6 size 9 torpedoes, and while not quite as stealthy a ship as the Eclipse, it's still very much a stealth vessel. But if you do prefer to go guns blazing, the Tally also has 5-man turrets with a mix of dual size 2s and 3s. And with the capacitor changes, this ship can pack a punch with that weaponry. It was one of our favourites during the Xeno Threat event. The interior gets some criticism for being quite cramped, but personally I really like the submarine vibe I get from this ship. If alien ships are your thing, then don't miss the Esperia Prowler at 4.25 million. This is a big brother to the Talon series, also based on Tavaran designs and maintaining the Alien Avian design brief. Functionally, the Prowler's a troop dropship designed to swoop in and deliver a squad onto the ground, so you've got some decent VTOL capability with those main thrusters rotating up and down. The interior here and the way the drop doors all open for each individual are truly works of art. Of course, if you want a dropship but you don't wish to conspire with the Xenos, then consider the Anvil Valkyrie at just a smidge more. I think the way that these ships contrast with each other is pretty smart, and shows that in game there's going to be more than one way to do the same job, with strengths and weaknesses whichever way you choose. So while the Prowler has that feel of dropping a special forces unit in behind enemy lines, the Valkyrie's more your go down guns blazing into a hot war zone. The Valk can carry a full squad of marines and offers some cool features like these sliding door guns for covering them while they disembark. And it's got this cool militaristic vibe with gunner seats for the remote turrets leading to the bridge. You may have also noticed, if you watched our org intro vid, that the Valk can comfortably fit 2 Cyclones, making it perfect for dropping mobile infantry units. At just over 4.9 million credits, we get to one of the first bulk cargo haulers in the current game. With 576 SCU, the Drake Caterpillar offers the second most capacity of any of the ships flyable at the moment. It's a bit of a brick, and it flies very much like it looks, so if you're used to flying smaller ships, I'd recommend you load up with something cheap like scrap, and take it for a test flight before you sit around buying all the Laranite you can get your hands on. Longer term, the Caterpillar has far more potential than it displays right now. The cargo is split across 4 modular compartments inside, and the idea is that you should be able to buy a variety of modules, such as an armory or a chop shop, giving the ship a huge amount of versatility. It was originally envisaged as a pirate mothership before the announcement of the Kraken, and the Caterpillar has a tractor beam for loading, legitimate salvage. And the command module where the pilot sits is meant to be able to detach a bit like the cab of a lorry. Unfortunately, these features, while very cool sounding, are just something that we're going to have to wait for. A fan favourite, also at 4.9 million, is the Crusader Mercury Star Runner, or MSR, and this is one of the ships that you're going to have to head to Horizon for nowadays. So while the ship's primary role as a data runner and smuggler isn't really in the game yet, the MSR is a true joy to fly, and it's cemented itself firmly as one of the community's favourite daily drivers. It's not shy of cargo space at 114 SCU, so it's nearly got as much as the Freelancer Max, while flying a lot more responsively. So despite it being quite a bit more expensive, a lot of the members of our org have favoured an MSR as their Quantanium delivery ship of choice. The garage has space for a couple of rock miners as well, so it can fit in that versatile camp with the Cutty Black and the Connie Andromeda. Notably, it's a bit weaker than the Andromeda in the combat department though. The MSR's also got 2 turrets, but it lacks the pilot-controlled gunnery of the Connie series. Internally though, the MSR is a bit of a masterclass in my opinion, so I can understand why so many people choose it as their daily driver. Sticking with Crusader, we have the Hercules series, starting with the C2 at 13k more than the MSR. When this was first added to ship shops in 3.14, a number of us were quite surprised at the price, particularly versus the Caterpillar and the MSR. However, while I'm not saying it's not a cool ship, it's pretty limited in terms of use cases. Carries a lot of cargo at 696 SCU, it's got the highest capacity in game right now, and it can also be used to ferry some of the largest ground vehicles. However, that's about the extent of its use, and the MSR and the Caterpillar for that matter suffer from their price being influenced by their future functionality as a data runner and a highly modular ship respectively. Internally, the C2 takes its lead from the MSR, again giving us an idea of how newer ships can be developed more quickly than the earlier ones as the design language is already established. Thanks to morphologists, you taught me clever words. The M2 is the more militarised version of the Hercules at 5.2 million credits, offering more armour and firepower for dropping off the aforementioned tanks. So it sacrifices some of the internal cargo capacity, dropping it to 522 SCU, but it gains an extra turret, and with it space for a turret gunner. You also lose the rec room that the C2 has in favour of space for your tank crews. Moving to flyable in 315, we've got the third of the series, the A2 Heavy Ground Bomber, so let me know what you think that's going to cost when it likely hits the shops in 316. At just over 5.1 million, the Argo Multi-Operator Laser Extractor, or MOLE if that's not catchy enough for you, is a multi-crew mining vessel. It's basically 3 prospectors strapped onto a single ship, with bigger lasers so you can mine from further away. Sometimes it's quite nice not to be touching the rocks that might blow up in your face. The cargo capacity for ores is 3 times the prospector as well at 96 SCU. If you need any tips on how to use one of these, check out my other videos, because this is probably what I'm best known for. Without going too deep into it, the MOLE is an excellent platform for getting together with a few mates, and group mining can be really fun and rewarding. Personally, the MOLE is my favoured mining ship in game, even solo, but everybody has their own opinions. I know a lot of people will just stick with the prospector and have no desire to move up to a MOLE. But that's one of the joys here, you know, if you like it, buy it and fly it. Internally, you've got a decent bridge for the captain, and then you have to pick your favourite mining buddy, because only one of the 3 lasers actually has oxygen, the other are exposed to hard vacuum. But everybody gets a bunk bed, and you've even got a kitchen table to share a microwave meal out in the Quantanium fields. In a bit of a switch, the MISC Starfarer series starts with the cheaper military version at just under 6.2 million. The focus of the Starfarers is refueling, and the Gemini has a lower capacity in that regard, just to allow for it to be heavily armoured and have more guns, so I assume that's why the Gemini comes out at cheaper than the base Starfarer. While the refueling mechanic isn't in the game yet, we can reasonably hope for it fairly soon. Sort of in the grand scheme of things, the Stanton system's both small and densely populated, with plentiful landing zones and even Lagrange point stations which allow even small single-seater fighters to make their way across it. So future systems like the upcoming Pyro are far larger and sparse, so refueling will be a required mechanic that I would imagine we'll need to see before we get Pyro. The Starfarer is also set to have refining abilities for mined goods, allowing mining crews to refine on the spot and closing off the mining loop, so I think it will really rise in importance once we get that. Hopefully in the not too distant future we might get a bit of a rework of this ship's internals though. I think they look really good, but they're a bit of a maze, more reminiscent of an FPS level than a well thought out industrial starship. At 9.5 million credits, the Origin 600i is an exploration vessel for those who like to see the stars in a bit more style. I drew a bit of fire last time I did one of these for calling this the Gentleman's Carrack, but I stick by it. I particularly love the bridge of this ship, with amazing clear views, and internally it houses a decent array of crew stations for scanning anything you find and keeping you comfortable even when you're out on the fringes. We've also got 3 size 5 guns under pilot control, which means the ship, it can actually handle itself in a fight, and I know some people use it as a bounty hunter. If you really want a luxurious ride though, consider the 600i touring model at 9.9 million credits. This ship sacrifices some of the 600i Explorer's internal science stations for a frankly beautiful interior and a number of staterooms for passengers. So with those mechanics coming with the NPC taxi missions, maybe this will have a place much like the Constellation Phoenix. Present on either version of the 600i though is this master bedroom, and frankly who wouldn't want to wake up to that view. At 12.5 million credits, the Regis Hammerhead corvette is the largest out-and-out combat ship available to players at the current time. Its primary role is to deal with enemy fighter craft, boasting 6 player man turrets with 4 size 4 guns each, so this is a ship that can definitely shred. It's also got 32 size 3 missiles, so since as the pilot you don't actually have any pew pew, you can be bringing the boom boom while you keep the ship in position. It's both an advantage and a disadvantage that the turrets cover all angles of the ship, so while you have some defense against getting outmaneuvered, it can be tricky to maximize the amount of guns you have pointing at a single target, so don't underestimate how much skill it takes to actually fly one of these well. The bridge is quite an interesting one in that it actually hangs down below the deck where most of the guns are located. And also the very distinctive Aegis design we've seen sort of carried over to some of their capital ships like the Idris and the Javelin, so it's a bit of a sneak peek into the future of what those ships might look like. The engine/cargo room in particular has some pretty cool visual effects on the go. And as the captain of one of these ships, you'll be glad to know you even get your own office to write up your battle reports. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, for 15.1 million credits, the Regis Reclaimer is the biggest, coolest paperweight in Star Citizen. Ultimately, this ship is the top tier large salvage ship, with its heavy claw turrets designed to chop up wrecks. However, with salvage appearing to be the cursed game mechanic, recently falling off the roadmap for Tier 0 in 3.16, we could be waiting a long time for this ship to have any real functionality. I think it was put into the game quite early on as sort of proof of concept by CIG that they could actually make these big multi-crew ships. But the Reclaimer has a really distinctive vibe, almost like it's jumped straight out of the Aliens universe. I love that not all the ships in Star Citizen are disturbingly clean and sterile. They're made to feel lived in, and the Reclaimer has almost been made to feel like it's been neglected over time. I think you'd have to be pretty dirty to come out of those showers cleaner than you went in. So at nearly 27 million credits we have the Anvil Carrack, and personally this has to be my favourite single ship currently flyable in Star Citizen. So I pledged for SC in 2014, but I only really got into playing day to day about a year ago. And I just remember going to the show floor of IAE a week in and walking around the Carrack, and I'm pretty sure my jaw just hit the floor. I've basically been hooked since. Originally a military ship, the Carrack's designed as the premier exploration vessel of Star Citizen, and it's the ship that gives me the real Star Trek vibes. I can sort of see myself crewing up with a bunch of mates and making our way out into the black to see what's there. There's even a double-tiered bridge for your helmsman and captain to have separate posts. And it has a variety of other seats for people controlling different systems on the ship. The ship has a hangar that can house a number of ships, although it's probably most designed to take an Anvil Pisces to act as kind of a shuttle for the ship. There's also a garage on the lower deck that could take a couple of ground vehicles, sort of I'd shove a Ursa rover in there for sure. The Carrack's 456 SCU of cargo is split into 3 cargo modules, with the potential for modularity in the future to replace those with other stations. And there's a full medbay for your ship's doctor with a Tier 2 medbed that currently only the Carrack and the 890 jump offer, allowing you to fix up all but the worst injuries really. This ship will probably be our Orc's premier search and rescue vehicle for the time being, with the ability to go out in this shuttle and get someone. Carrack's also got a full cartography deck and engineering stations for when those mechanics enter the game. The crew have some proper recreation facilities for long journeys, and if my YouTube career ever reaches dizzying heights, I'm going to want one of these funky pool tables for sure. But one criticism of the Carrack is it has a fairly small number of beds, with 5 for the crew and a separate suite for the captain, when clearly this ship could support an awful lot more people. So I really hope in the future that this can be corrected, maybe through sort of the modules that could replace some of the cargo. And finally, if you want the ultimate statement piece, look no further than the Origin 890 jump at 32,294,500 credits. New Deal and Astro Armada are both happy to take your money off you for one of these. While the ship's primary function in lore is as the ultimate luxury cruiser, basically representing a hotel on thrusters, it has a lot of functionality, making it effectively a floating Orc HQ for the time being. So this ship really represents what CIG can do, and I'd recommend showing it to anyone who hasn't played SC but is fast to call Scam Citizen. The ship can only be spawned at a handful of locations due to its size, but can conveniently use the docking ports at space stations if you need to pick up your passengers. And the hangar can carry an awful lot more than my single M50, but I think it looks good in there. One of my co-founders at Frontier once spent an entire evening seeing how many MPUVs he could fit in. I lost count of how many he did. And there's also a garage for ground vehicles that can even take a Nova tank or a ballista. The ship also has a medical bed, that's tier 2 like the one on the Carrack. But let's be honest, one of the main reasons to own an 890 jump is just to make a grand statement of exactly how rich you are in game. It's sort of the ultimate toy, and it's got the best views, it's got the most marble, it effectively just bleeds opulence. To be honest, in the remit of this video I really can't do a ship like this or even some of the other larger ones justice. So I would recommend you go and check out some other videos on these if you like them. But you've got your own bar, you've got your own restaurant, and you've even got your own sort of boardroom to hold any org meetings or negotiations you need to. It particularly made a pretty good place to watch Jared during CitizenCon. Quick disclaimer, Photoshop. But if you need to unwind at the end of a long hard day, you've even got your own spa with a full swimming pool and saunas. Just make sure you leave plenty of time to actually run across the hangar and get to the bridge of this thing. So as we go into a wipe with 315, I hope that rundown of all the ships you can buy in game has got you thinking about how you're going to fill your hangars. And as we go into sales season, maybe just remember that you don't need to part with too much hard currency to own and fly these ships. I'm not saying don't give CIG your money, it's your money, your choice, and don't get me wrong, I'm fully aware of how this game gets its funding and gets made. But maybe consider earning and flying some of these so that you can decide on your favourites, you know, the ones that you really don't think you can live without on day one, and then decide on your purchase. And be sure to let me know in the comments what your favourite ships are, or least favourite for that matter, but just remember, like I said last time, that just because you don't like it doesn't mean that somebody else isn't allowed to. And with all that said, thanks for watching all the way to the end, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.